Hello and welcome back to another journey into the unknown. You are listening to The Deep Dive, and today we are doing something a little different.
We really are.
We're turning the clock back, we're dimming the lights, we are stepping into a living room in Elmira, New York.
And the date is Wednesday, June 30, 1965.
It is.
It's a humid summer night, and you can probably imagine a little haze of cigarette smoke in the air. I mean, it was the 60s after all.
Of course.
And we're about to eavesdrop on a conversation that isn't just crossing state lines. It's crossing the boundaries of reality itself.
That's right. We are diving deep into the Seth Material today. Specifically, we're looking at session 166 from the early sessions, book 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, usually when we do these deep dives, we're looking at, tech trends or history or science. But today, we're looking at the nature of consciousness itself.
And we should say, before we get into the ghosts, the ulcers, and the corporate espionage.
And yes, I did say corporate espionage.
We have a couple of important housekeeping notes.
We do. Go ahead.
Well, first, we need to explicitly state that this deep dive is based on that session, recorded on June 30th, 1965. And as always, this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Exactly. And our mission for this dive is a really fascinating one. I mean, usually when people think of channeled material or, spiritual texts, they think of this high-minded philosophy.
Right, the nature of God, the structure of the universe, that sort of thing.
Planes of existence, all of it. And while Seth, the energy personality essence channeled by Jane Roberts, he certainly covers all of that. But today, we're seeing a very, very different side of him.
We're seeing the practical side, and honestly, we are seeing the sassy side.
Sassy is an understatement. I mean, if you think spiritual entities are all love and light and soft heart music, you are in for a surprise today.
The big surprise.
We're going to witness Seth gossiping, critiquing, really about other mediums. We are going to explore a surprisingly biological take on personality and physical health, specifically why one salesman gets an ulcer and another one doesn't.
And this is where it gets really strange. We're going to get into some eerily specific corporate and political predictions that were made for the witness present that night, a man named John Bradley.
It is wild. I mean, you don't expect a disembodied spirit to be giving stock market tips.
We're warning you about a short man at the office.
Exactly. But that is exactly what happens here. And of course, all of this comes to us courtesy of the Seth Material and the publisher, New Awareness Network.
It's this unique blend of the metaphysical and the incredibly mundane. And that's what makes the Seth Material so compelling to me. It grounds all the woo-woo, if you want to call it that,
Sure,
in the absolute reality of, paying bills, dealing with annoying coworkers, and managing your own stomach acid.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I want to start with what is, I think, arguably the most entertaining part of this whole session.
Okay.
We'll call this segment 1, the medium versus the medium.
I love this part. This gives us such a rare glimpse into the personality of Jane Roberts, the woman who channeled Seth, and also Seth's reaction to her personal life, because you have to remember, they are distinct personalities.
Right.
So here's the setup. Jane, who Seth always calls Rupert, and her friend Peggy Gallagher, they decided to go visit a local medium in their town earlier that week.
But they weren't going because they wanted a reading, were they? They weren't there seeking, genuine guidance.
No, not at all. They were going to troll her.
To troll her. In 1965, that is just amazing.
Essentially, yes. They went to investigate, but really the vibe was to make fun of her. They wanted to see if she was a fake.
So they were playing the skeptics.
Totally. Sitting in this small room, watching this woman perform, probably holding back laughter, just judging the whole performance. You can picture it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Two smart, very articulate women just sitting there with their arms crossed waiting for a slip-up.
And Seth was not happy about this.
Not happy is putting it mildly.
Not at all. When Seth comes through in this session on Wednesday night, he is absolutely scathing about Jane's behavior. He calls it, and this is a direct quote, a truly idiotic performance.
I love that so much. You have this entity who has, lived countless lives, seen the secrets of the universe, and he takes time out of his very busy, non-physical schedule to say, Jane, you are being a jerk.
Precisely. Let's look at what he actually says here. He asks the room, since when does Rupert, that's Jane, stoop so low as to make fun of fools? If anything, the woman deserves pity and hardly scorn.
That is a heavy critique. And it's so interesting because you would think Seth would be the first one to call out a fake medium, right?
You'd think so.
Like, hey, I'm the real deal. I know how this works. And this lady's a fraud. You'd expect him to sort of defend the brand of mediumship.
You would. And he does acknowledge that the woman is deluded. He's not saying she's real. He calls her neurotic, misled, and embarrassingly sincere.
Embarrassingly sincere. What a phrase.
Isn't it? But his issue isn't with her lack of ability. It's with Jane's lack of empathy.
It's an ethics lesson from a ghost.
It is. Seth points out that these fake or, deluded mediums often serve a legitimate social function. They listen to people who have no one else to talk to. They offer comfort to the lonely. They're well-meaning.
So just because you're smarter or more psychic or you have access to a higher source like Seth, that doesn't give you the right to bait a 72-year-old woman who's just trying to help people, even if she's doing it clumsily.
Exactly. It highlights Seth's moral compass, which is fascinating. Intelligence shouldn't be used as a weapon against the elderly or the confused. It's beneath Jane's dignity.
Okay, and here's where it gets really funny and frankly a little chilling. Seth admits he was watching the whole thing.
This part gave me goosebumps and also made me laugh out loud at the same time.
Me too.
Seth says, and I'm quoting again, "I did watch with some amusement as the scene was enacted in a small room and as the ghosts were supposed to materialize in the doorway."
Just picture that for a second. You have Jane and her friend just snickering about fake ghosts. The fake medium is pretending to see ghosts, and in the corner, totally invisible to everyone, is a real entity watching the whole thing like it's a sitcom.
The meta level is just insane. He is a ghost watching someone pretend to see ghosts.
And then he drops the punchline.
Oh, this is the best part.
It really is.
He says, "In one of my more friendly moods, I might indeed have tried a materialization of my own that would have frightened the poor woman out of her wits."
Can you even imagine? You're a fake medium, you're doing your little song and dance, maybe you're shaking the table a bit, and suddenly a real full-blown apparition just manifests in the doorway just to mess with you.
It would have been absolute chaos, utter chaos. But Seth, being the voice of reason here, he decided against it. He says, "Nevertheless, I did not do so."
Thank goodness for her.
But he warns Jane to stay out of these investigations. He says it's not her place, it's beneath her dignity to mock people who are just trying to get by.
It really humanizes Seth, or I don't know, spiritizes him. It shows he has a sense of humor, but also a very strict code of conduct. He's not just a data stream. He is a personality with opinions on how Jane spends her Tuesday nights.
And it sets the tone perfectly for the rest of the session. Seth is very, very concerned with integrity, inner integrity, and outer integrity. He doesn't like Jane being two-faced, with the medium, pretending to be a client while she's secretly mocking her.
And that theme of being two-faced or divided against oneself, that brings us perfectly to the next segment.
It does.
Right, we are moving from the seance room to the doctor's office. Let's call this segment 2, the biological reality of personality. This is where we start talking about ulcers.
This is one of the most profound parts of the entire session, and honestly, if you take nothing else away from this deep dive, take this. Seth uses the people present in the room to illustrate this massive concept, that your personality isn't just in your head. It is a biological reality.
He compares the witness, John Bradley, who Seth calls Philip, with another friend of theirs, Bill Gallagher. Now, for context, both of these guys are salesmen.
Right. Same general job description. They probably face very similar pressures, deadlines, all of that.
But Bill has a terrible ulcer, and John doesn't.
Right. And, standard medicine in 1965, and honestly, often even today, would look at that and say, well, Bill is just more stressed, or it's his diet, or maybe he drinks too much coffee.
Sure, the usual suspects.
But Seth says, no, that's not it. It is about how they relate to their own identities.
He drops this quote that I want to read because it is, frankly, it's terrifying. He says, "When it accepts an illness as a part of its own self-image, then the illness becomes an actual part of the reality that is the self."
That is the key, right there. He is saying you can essentially adopt an illness. He tells Bill that he considers his ulcer more real and necessary than an arm or a leg.
Why would anyone do that? I mean, that's the part I struggle with. Why would you want an ulcer to be necessary? Who wakes up and says, you know what, I need this burning pain?
It's not conscious, that's the thing. But Seth explains that for Bill, the ulcer becomes a unifying principle. Bill's entire life starts to revolve around this illness.
So it becomes the center of gravity for his personality.
Yes. But the root cause is what's so fascinating. It comes down to how Bill and John approach their jobs as salesmen.
Okay, so let's get into this tale of two salesmen. How does John, or Philip, as Seth calls him, how does he do it?
John brings his inner integrity into his job. So when he's selling a product, he believes in it. Or, even if he doesn't believe in the product itself, he believes in his ability to sell it. He says to himself, this is me, this aggressive salesman, this talker, this is who I am. You can like it or not, but buy what I am selling.
So he integrates his inner self with his outer actions. There is no separation.
There's no separation. So even though sales is a high-pressure job, John is whole. He is one person. He isn't fighting himself.
Okay. Now look at Bill.
Seth says Bill compartmentalizes. He leaves his essential self at home. So when he puts on his suit and goes to work, he creates a wall. He thinks, this is not me. This is not myself. I am just doing this for the money. The real me is back at home. He's playing a role that he secretly despises, or at least disconnects from.
I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to that. The work self versus the real self.
Of course.
We talk about work-life balance, but this is deeper. This is work self separation.
We all do it to some extent, right? But Seth argues that if you do that too extremely, there is a biological consequence. The inner self, the part Bill leaves at home, the part he suppresses, it gets angry, it feels ignored, so it creates the ulcer.
Wait. The ulcer is created by the inner self, not just as a reaction to stress.
Yes, that's the radical idea here. Seth calls the ulcer a physical bridge.
The physical bridge.
It is an attempt to force the two halves of the personality to acknowledge each other. The stomach is literally protesting. It's saying, you cannot ignore me. If you won't listen to your intuition, then you will listen to your gut pain.
That completely flips the script on illness. It's not just a malfunction. It's a message. It's a shout for attention from the parts of yourself that you're suppressing.
It connects the psychological directly to the somatic. It's a denial of the self in one's daily activities. I mean, think about it. If you spend 8 hours a day pretending you aren't there, behaving in a way that violates your own nature, your body might start to self-destruct just to prove that you are there.
It's like the body is screaming, I am real, feel this.
Exactly. Feel this burning sensation. That's reality. You can't leave that at home.
So the takeaway for John, the guy without the ulcer, was basically, keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
He integrates his aggressive sales nature with his inner self. He just accepts who he is.
Exactly. Seth says John has endless energies available to him. And why? Because he isn't wasting energy maintaining that wall between his two selves.
That makes sense.
Secrecy and compartmentalization, they drain you. It takes effort to be two people. It takes a lot of effort to hide. Openness and integration, they energize you.
This is such a crucial point for anyone listening who feels just drained at the end of the day. Maybe it's not the work that's tired you out. Maybe it's the effort of pretending to be someone else while you do the work.
That is the Sethian perspective, precisely. Energy is released when the self is unified.
Speaking of energy and careers, this leads us to the most surprising and, frankly, the most unspiritual part of the session.
Oh, yeah?
Segment 3, the corporate oracle.
This is where the deep dive gets truly, truly specific. Usually, spiritual advice is vague. Follow your heart, change is coming, trust the universe.
Right.
Seth, however, turns into a corporate consultant for GD Searle, which was the drug company where John Bradley worked.
He really does. He starts making these predictions that are shockingly detailed. I mean, if I went to a psychic and they started giving me, like, Q3 revenue forecasts, I'd be very confused.
But again, to Seth, it's all just energy. Money is energy. Influence is energy. Corporate structure is energy. So he looks at John's company and he predicts a major reorganization within the company. He says it's inevitable because of financial losses.
And he puts a timeline on it. He says the downfall will happen within 6 months and the recovery will take a full year.
And then he pulls the death card. This is straight out of a movie. He predicts a death in the higher organizational realm of the company within 6 to 18 months. And he says this death will be one of the main triggers for the reorganization.
That is bold. That is a bold prediction. But then he starts talking stock prices. I mean, can you imagine you're at a spiritual session, the lights are low, and the spirit guide says, by the way, sell your stock.
It's amazing. Seth notes that the stock was at 54.5, down from the 60s. He explicitly advises that the stock will drop further and that this loss of value is what will force the board to reorganize.
So what's his advice to John then? John is sitting there probably panicking about his job security.
Yeah.
Does Seth tell him to quit? Get out while you can.
No,
Oh.
Not at all. Seth advises patience. He says, don't jump ship yet. He tells John that if he waits out the storm, he'll actually be in a better position. The reorganization will favor him if he just stays steady.
But he also drops a cryptic hint about the future, right?
Yeah.
He mentions a Minneapolis connection.
Yes. He talks about a small firm in the Midwest, perhaps Minneapolis, that's going to expand drastically, and he tells John he might deal with them either as a competitor or as a member.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And then the spookiest detail of all, the short man.
Beware of a short man.
And John says in the notes, I don't know who this is.
That is the classic thriller trope, isn't it? You don't know who the villain is yet.
Yeah.
But Seth is planting these seeds. It really highlights Seth's claim that he can view probabilities. He isn't just seeing the future as some fixed movie, he is seeing the currents of energy. He sees a short man moving into a position of antagonism against John in the probable future.
It's just fascinating because it shows that spirituality isn't separate from the real world. Seth is just as interested in John's career stability as he is in his soul's growth.
Yes.
In fact, he seems to suggest they are the same thing.
Absolutely. To Seth, your job is the arena where you exercise your energy. It's where you test your beliefs. It's not separate from your spiritual path. If you are a salesman, your spiritual growth happens through sales, not in spite of it.
Which brings us to the final tangled web that Seth unravels for John. Let's call it segment 4. Politics, secrets, and success.
This is such a great example of Seth's counterintuitive thinking. So, the context. John is involved in a conservative political group. Now remember, it's 1965. The political climate was, let's just say, charged.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Civil rights, Vietnam ramping up, Cold War paranoia, the whole thing.
Exactly. So John is worried. He works for a major corporation. He's thinking, if my bosses find out I'm involved in this right-wing group, it's going to hurt my career. They might fire me. They might think I'm a radical. He's afraid of being judged.
And Seth says, actually, no. It's going to help you.
Exactly. Seth says the conservative nature of the group actually works in his favor. Not because the bosses agree with the politics. They might be liberals. They might hate his politics.
Right.
But they will trust John's integrity.
That is such a twist. It's not about the opinion. It's about the strength of conviction.
That's it. Seth says they will be afraid of a liberal. They will want a man who is sincere. The idea is that the bosses see a man who is willing to lead an unpopular cause, a man willing to stick his neck out for what he believes. That signals a strong character.
So they might hate his opinions,
Yeah.
but they respect his backbone.
And in the corporate world, a man with a backbone who can lead is valuable. Seth says they want a man who is sincere. They want someone who isn't just going with the flow.
But there's a catch. There's a leak.
Yes. The spy novel element comes back. Seth reveals that John is being watched. He says there is someone in that political organization who is unwittingly passing information to John's superiors.
And he identifies the link, specifically as a family-in-law relationship.
This is where the notes from the session get really interesting, because John confirms this. He says he had suspected since January that he was being watched, and Seth's detail about the in-law helped him pinpoint exactly who the leak was.
It's just wild. We've got ghosts, ulcers, stock tips, and now corporate spies leaking info through in-laws. It's a whole movie in one session.
And yet, Seth ties it all back to the central theme of the entire night: secrecy.
Right. Seth critiques John here. He says John has a tendency toward deep secrecy, especially in his home life.
And Seth warns him, be more open at home to maintain inner security. He says secrecy drains energy. It goes right back to the ulcer concept.
Wow.
If you are hiding things, whether it's your political views or your feelings at home, you are building walls. Walls take energy to maintain. If you take down the walls, that energy is then available for your work, your health, your life.
So John's secrecy at home is a weakness, but his openness at work, his willingness to be himself and sell what he believes, that's his strength.
Precisely. The goal is total integration. No walls. No work self versus home self. Just one unified, energetic personality.
It's a truly holistic view of a human being.
Yeah.
You can't fix your stomach if you don't fix your work habits, and you can't fix your work habits if you don't look at how you handle secrets at home. It's all connected.
Everything is connected. The biological, the professional, the political, the spiritual. All one system.
So what does this all mean for us? You know, for the listener driving to work right now or doing the dishes or maybe sitting in their own office wondering about their own short man.
Well, I think there are 4 main takeaways from this session.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, health. Do not let an illness become your identity. Don't build your life around your pain. And realize that physical symptoms might be your inner self trying to bridge a gap you've created.
If you hate your job and pretend you aren't there, your stomach knows. Your
Yep.
stomach is keeping score.
Exactly. Your body is the ultimate truth teller. Second, humor and ethics. Don't mock the unknown. Seth's reaction to Jane's prank shows that even spirits have a code of honor. Respect people, even if you think they're wrong. Intelligence is not a license for cruelty.
And maybe don't tempt a ghost to materialize just to scare you. That feels like good life advice in general.
Good general advice, yes. Third, career. Integrity is currency. Even if your views are unpopular, your sincerity is what people respect. Don't be afraid to be yourself in the boardroom. Don't try to be the person you think they want. Be the person you are, loudly.
And finally,
Mystery. The world is stranger than we think. There are probabilities, connections, and short men we haven't met yet. Pay attention to the details. Listen to your intuition. The universe is watching. And you know what? Sometimes it's giving you stock tips.
I love that. And here is a provocative final thought to leave you with. Seth mentions at one point that John's past life experiences prepared him for medicine, and his current sales job uses energy to affect the minds of others.
It raises a huge question, doesn't it? If we are all salesmen of our own ideas, are we actually sold on our own product? If you are trying to sell the world on version A of yourself, the happy, successful, unflappable version, but internally you believe in version B, the scared imposter version, you're creating a physiological conflict. What is your body doing right now to bridge that gap?
That is something to chew on. If this deep dive sparked your curiosity, and I really hope it did, we strongly encourage you to study the Seth Material books yourself. There is nothing quite like reading the raw sessions.
Absolutely. You can visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Dig in. It is a treasure trove of information.
Thank you for joining us on this trip back to 1965. Keep your eyes open for short men, keep your integrity high, and most importantly,
Keep your inner and outer selves talking.
see you next time on The Deep Dives.